Hey, I'm Cameron with Yates Contracting, and on this episode of Remodeling America, we're in the middle of a tiling project right now, so just kind of run you through a couple of the different materials that we use, some of the tools that we use in different stages of tiling, and just kind of walk you through, give you an idea on what it's like to tile a bathroom and how we do it. Hope you enjoy it. Alright, so in this bathroom right now, we've already put the shower backer in, we've done the shower, the floor for the shower, pretty much everything before the tile. We've done some tile so far. So we've got our backer in on the bathroom floor, and we've also done our heated floor. So if you kind of look at the floor that we have right now, we use a different kind of style backer. There's a couple different kinds out there. We just prefer the ones that we use now. There's a couple different brands. One is from Mapei and one's from Schluter. So this one in particular is from Schluter, and it's their Schluter heat system, Ditra heat. And Ditra is the product that they put on the bottom, but this one is different because it has these different kinds of little grooves. Basically, they're little octagons that they pretty much emboss into the underlayment itself. And what it does is it allows us to run our heated floor in there. So these are different from a lot of the other backers. So for a lot of times nowadays people use a Hardy backer or a Wonderboard, and they'll use 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch for the floor and 1/2 inch for the walls. This pretty much replaces that, and it's made of a plastic with a waterproof fabric, on the back side of it. So you thin set down. Usually with this backer, a 1/4 by 1/4 notch trowel, and you put a layer of thin set on the ground. You kind of pre-cut all your pieces so that they fit. They come in rolls that are about 3 feet wide by 100 feet long, and after you've pre-cut them, you pull one up at a time, you put your thin set down, and then you roll the backer, in this case it's the Ditra, on top of it, and you smooth it out. There's weighted rollers that you can use, or you can use pretty much, not necessarily this one, but you can use a grout float, a big grout float, heavy grout float, to get on any air bubbles and to level it out really nicely. So you do that for your whole, all your backer, all your Ditra, and then after it's dried for a day, at least a day to kind of set up, we actually ran our heated floor system, which is another Ditra product. It's all sold together, and it all comes up from the thermostat here, and you run, it's basically 3 lines. One is the heated cable line, and then there's 2 thermostat lines. So you run that, they have spacing, and exactly, you can't cut it, so you have to run the whole thing. This one's on 120 volts, and it does about 42 square feet. You can get a 240 volt system that does about just under 100 square feet. So you run it all throughout the whole flooring, and then you, what I like to do is I like to go ahead and coat it with the Thinset. The Thinset we use for all of our Ditra product, all our Schluter products, including Ditra, is their all set. If you don't use this, you have to use unmodified Thinset on the top of everything, but you can use modified Thinset on the bottom. This is a modified Thinset that they have allowed you to use for pretty much all of their products across the board. So that's what we tend to use for all the Schluter stuff. So after heated floor is in, we go ahead and we skim coat everything and let it dry, just so it protects all our wires, so we don't have to worry about them getting cut or scuffed up or pulled out before we lay our floors. And then when we go to lay our floors, we do our layouts to make sure we like where all the tiles are, and for that we like to use a couple different things, but this is just a Bosch laser, and it's probably a little bit hard to see, but if you can see how it kind of does a perfect 90 with the lasers here, and then it'll also do a third laser right down the middle, especially if you're setting tiles on a 45. You can turn that on and off if you don't need it. But we use this to get our perfect squares all the way across. We set all our tiles up exactly where we want to, make sure there's no big pieces next to some really tiny pieces. We set it up before we even cut anything, and we use this to help us get exact squares. So when we finally decide where we want to set all the tiles, we've got our lines marked out. We usually want to always make sure we leave ourselves an exit. So we start from our furthest point back. So in this room, we'd probably start from something like a closet, like over here, so that we can work out of the closet, and then the tiles are running this way, so then we'll do in front of the shower, work this way, do right where the vanity is, and then go out the doorway. We try to do it all in one day, so the idea is that you get yourself a walking path so you're not stepping on your tile. For that, we still also use the All-Set because it's on a Schluter product. And I like to use a 1/2x1/2 notch trowel. Kind of a little slightly modified on it. I like to cut this little chunk out. It makes it a little bit easier when you're scraping the side of the tile to get all the way down and make it nice and clean. But I use a 1/2x1/2 because it gives us a lot better ability to kind of level the floor out. So if there's any dips or any rolls in the floor, the more Thinset we have down, the better it is for us to be able to pretty much mitigate any problems with the floor when you first got here. So we'll start from the side. We use 1/2x1/2, and we always what we do is we call backbutter our tile. So we'll take some Thinset and actually scrape a nice thin coat on the back side of the tile, and we use the Thinset on the bottom of the trowel. This allows a lot better adhesion and coverage of the Thinset. Gives you a lot better hold, and you don't have any hollow spots. It's just a lot stronger. And then what we'll do is we use this system. I've used several different ones. I like this one a lot, price-wise and use-wise. It's the Perfect Level Master T-Lock leveling system. We've used it on the wall over there, but I'll kind of show you how it works. So you have to integrate it while you're laying your floors. So especially on long tiles like these, big tiles, I like to use this system because it helps us, since especially these longer tiles, just none of them are perfectly straight. They've always got a little bow to them, they're rounded, they're kind of cupped because they're so big. There's just always imperfections no matter how much money you spend on these tiles. So what we like to do, depending on these size tiles, I don't really like putting them right on the corners. So you'll have, while you're laying it and while it's in place, you have to kind of put these in. So let's just say we're in the process of laying these tiles. You slide these spacers underneath each tile. And you kind of want to space them out depending on the kind of tile that you have. You don't want to ever get them like very close to the corners. I just don't like it because I don't necessarily trust the tile, because maybe the leveling system will level it out, but then the tile will get broken. So after you set your tiles down in the Thinset, you have these white spacers which act as their spacers and their levelers. So they basically, we use 1/8 inch for everything. They space them at 1/8 inch, and then it's always different heights because your floor is never perfectly flat. Usually you can take out a lot of it if you're good at setting tile, but if you have a lot of rolls in them or you want it to be 100% perfect, it is because you're taking out rolls in the tile itself. It is nice to use one of these systems. So you get your red wedges in place, and then we use one of these. You don't have to. You can push these in with your fingers, but I like to get the exact strength of each one. Come in with these all the way in. Whatever you've set it to the thickness of the tile, and then you just want to make sure that they're nice and tight. And what this does is it'll either pull one of the tiles up, it could push down an area of the tile, and it'll just create a lippage-free tiling all the way across it. It's not really just because you're a novice or just if you're a professional, it works for both ends. It just gives you that nice, perfect finish. I mean, they're not cheap, they're rather expensive, so they're really only for the people that want that real nice, real perfect finish floor, especially for these long tiles. We use it for a lot of things. You can kind of see over in this corner, we've just done our bottom row, our level row for our shower, and we even use them for these because they're a 4x16 tile, and they're ceramic, so I did put them in the corners here. I wasn't so worried about it, but we use them here as well because, I mean, the walls are wavy. I mean, you'll never get a perfect edge unless you use some kind of a system. So we like to use this kind of system in these long tiles, and especially these ones on our floor. So we'll set all our tile, just like I was telling you, with that system and the 1/2x1/2, and then after everything's dry, we come back in and you actually just knock these out with a rubber mount. So you hit these and these break off, and then you have to clean your grout joints. Now, there's a lot of different ways people clean their grout joints. You'll always get a little bit of Thinset. Even if you're really good at it, you'll always get a little bit of Thinset everywhere. So I usually just wipe my tile down with a sponge, and then you can either come in with something like a 5-in-1 tool, where you can come in, you can kind of scrape the joints, or even, honestly, sometimes we'll use a knife. But with this, we have our heated floor here, and our wire is directly below our tile, so it's really important to make sure we don't cut anything. So you have to use something relatively dull, and just make sure you do your best to not get any tile in the joints at all. So then you don't have to even worry about cleaning them out, and then you don't have those problems at all. But after we're done cleaning it, we have to test and make sure the wire hasn't been cut or some other problems. So when you're doing a heated floor, you have to be really accurate and really on point, or you could have a big mess on your hands. So after you clean all your grout joints, you vacuum everything out, you get all the dust out, then it's time to grout. We use a high-end grout. We actually use the Care Epoxy CQ, so it's a MAPE product, and it's an epoxy grout. So you actually have to mix it together, and it has I think you can only have about maybe an hour or so until it's all done. So you mix this and then you spread it out. There's rules about how to clean it. You clean it with a white sponge first and the yellow sponge afterwards, but it's basically almost a stain-proof, leak-proof. You never have to seal it again. We use it on everything from showers to backsplashes. So it is a more expensive product, but we just think that grout is pretty much one of the most important things in your bathroom, because that's always what goes bad, and that's always what people notice, so the grout joints or the grout itself. So we believe in spending a lot of time and money on the grout. I think it's extremely important. So for that, you clean up, and all you do is you put your caulking in any of the joints that you want to put caulking in, pretty much. That varies for some people. I put it against the drywall and sometimes in some inside corners, but it depends on the project. A couple of these other tools that we have, there's different style notch trowels. So the 1/2x1/2 we use for our floor. We use a 4x3/8 for any of our wall tile. I just like it a little bit better. We use, this is just a 1/8 inch V-notch trowel. We use that for attaching some of our curdy, which is our waterproofing membrane that we put in our showers. And the 1/4x1/4 is used for the bottoms of this Ditra, or some of the other backer products that we use, as well as I'll use it for shower floor, especially if it's like a 2x2 tile. I'll use this as well, so you don't get any waves in your tile. So we'll do that, and the different spacers that we have. So especially if we're doing wall tile, you'll need several different spacers. These act as spacers, but at the same time, you've got, I love these little tabby wedge spacers and corners. This one works really well for, especially if you're doing something like this, where it's a brick joint. Fit right in there. They do well for doing floors or walls. We use these wedge spacers as well for when you're spacing out. On floors, they work the best, like right at the bottom edge, but they work for a lot of different things, especially if you need different sizes. But if you only need a little bit or a lot, you can even stack them on top of each other. And then for inside corners, whenever you're doing tile where it's 4 tile come together in a single corner, these are just like these inside ones, but instead they're for 4. So they would basically go and they 4 come together, so you have nice spaces. That's the most important, honestly, for us in tile. Everything needs to be extremely exact. Corners, really exact. No lips. Everything perfect. I think that quality in a bathroom is, you could see it very easily. So I like it when every joint is perfectly aligned, and when we have no lips, no lippage at all. So it's just kind of a couple things that we use, a couple different things that we like to use with our tile. It kind of makes us a little different from some guys. They do things differently, but we like to do things with as much quality as we can. We'll still keep it up as much speed as possible. Efficiency is usually what we go for. So high quality and high speed, so that we can get a perfect nice product. And this is another tool that we'll use. It's another kind of laser, but instead of shooting a laser on the floor for squaring up tile, what this one does is it shoots a level laser, flat and one straight up in the air. So we use it mostly for our shower walls. So it's very important when you're doing your shower that you start with a perfectly level line. And that's what we've done here. We put in our board because the floors, they're never perfectly level. Even if you make them yourself, it doesn't matter. They never are. So what we like to do is we'll set, depending on our height, we like to close to a full tile on the bottom. So we'll measure up and get close to a full tile, but let's make sure that it does need to be cut. Because we like to put our floors underneath and our wall on top to help with our water, so there's no water that collects in the corners. So we'll use this laser to give us a perfectly level line all the way across, and that's what we'll set our board to, so that we can install our first row perfectly level and then go all the way up our walls, and then we'll pull our level boards afterwards, do our floor, and as soon as that's dry, then we fill in our pieces at the bottom so we have a nice perfectly flat floor. Our walls go on top of our floors instead of up to our floors, and all our wall tiles perfectly level. We'll also use the feature of the vertical line to pretty much go all the way up and mark that, so that when we're laying our tile up our walls, we don't start drifting from one side to another, and we don't necessarily favor, because even walls, they'll wedge one way or the other. We don't favor either wall. We just do a nice perfect level line all the way up the middle. This way our tile stays perfectly square and level. Anyway, I'm Cameron with Yates Contracting, and if you liked the video, if you could subscribe to our channel, hit the bell for notifications, it'll let you know whenever we post something new. And try to keep it relevant and try to keep it different. So if you like the video, comment below and let me know. And then, Cameron, this is Remodeling America.